Optimal health for high performers. This is the Health Upgrade Podcast with Dr. Nawaz Habib.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Habib. I'm really excited about today's episode because today we actually get to go on a health upgrade journey. I'm really excited to have one of my amazing clients, Joelle, with me, and we're going to talk about how Joelle has transformed over the last few months and the big changes that she's noticed, not only in her health, but also in her life and her ability to show up and be the best version of herself every day. So thank you so much for joining me, Joelle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, how are you? I'm excited about this.
So let's start off really simply just talking about what prompted you to come to the session last year when you did early on in the year. I remember I was running an in-person session and did some ads, and it turned out to be an incredibly rainy and crazy day in Toronto, and you showed up and something changed there. What were you experiencing and what were you thinking when you came to that event?
Well, if I'm being really honest, I mean, I think I stalked you for about 2 years on social media just to sort of get a vibe. I've always been curious about health and gut health, and I was getting to a point. It was actually my daughter whose health who I was more concerned about than my own, of course, which is often as a parent, that's what happens. And I'd noticed that she was having some underlying issues, and I thought, this is the direction. Something was off, not quite what. I knew a little bit, enough to be dangerous in the whole gut health, but not enough to know exactly what was going on. And you kept popping up and it kept coming back. So I'm like, right, this is, it's time. I've got to get to this meeting. And when you announced the meeting, I'm there. So, and it just seemed to be very organic after that, listening to that. And it was the yeses in my head going, yes, this is where I need to be. So that's what came from that information. And again, it was all for my daughter. And through her journey with you and the improvement in her health, she was actually my motivator in getting me, as I was sitting on the fence with my own journey with health, with the, again, underlying malaise, not feeling 100% of anything, but not really knowing what was going on, just not feeling healthy. She was the one who said to me, Mum, you did this for me. Why don't you choose yourself? And when your own kid says that, you gotta go, you know what, step up to the plate. So that's when I put in the call, and I was turning 50. And of course, I'd had been diagnosed with melanoma the year before, and it was stage 4 melanoma, which of course I'm Australian, so that's not an unusual thing for Australians. But I started to question my own health in the respect that, why did I get melanoma? Yes, I've been exposed to the sun, but why is that other people don't get things and you've got the same skin types in me? So there was something going on. I wasn't feeling well. I was nearing 50 and I was gaining weight, just thinking I was perimenopausal. As you do, you start to get a little more swollen. And, I was quite accepting of that. But again, not feeling good and not feeling my optimal self. And that's when my daughter said, Mum, and I went, you're right. You know what? Put your money where your mouth is, Joelle, and step up to the plate. And I've got to say, best decision I ever made.
That's amazing.
Ever made. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I'm honored that you even kind of mentioned that at the end there. But for me, it comes down to the fact that you knew in your body, in your mind, something wasn't right. And that you were willing to put the effort and put in the work to do something about it. And your story of putting your child's health first, literally in sequential order in your case, is not uncommon. We tend to think about others before we think about ourselves. It's a very common occurrence with parents, especially, that we put our kids' health first. We want to do everything for them. And I imagine it's been a really important thing in your case, because since you've been able to kind of take care of your own health, you've been able to show up in a different way as a parent. Have you noticed anything like that?
Absolutely. It's been kind of cool. I mean, my kids are now, my daughter's 20 and my son's 22. So, we're in the next phase of parenting and not the crazy life kind of parenting. which is kind of cool because I get the adults that I've raised sort of coming back and going, hey, why don't, and we, we now cook together. My daughter and I, constantly, all right, what do you want to try this? Do you want to try that? My poor husband gets dragged along and he's now gluten-free, and I'm trying to get him dairy-free. And he's like, I just want my pasta. But he's actually noticed a lot about his own health. I know he was the reluctant one. I didn't sign up for this, but he's noticed a lot about his own health in cutting out the things that were, naturally we grew up with. I mean, he's European, so we grew up with the pastas and the breads so he's noticed things like that. My daughter has definitely noticed her brain fog has completely disappeared. Both of us, our energy levels are so much greater. You're just able to show up in a way, because when you're not, and another side effect of what I was going through, I was so inflamed that I was in pain all the time. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize, I just took it as that's just what happens as you're getting older, right? You've always got aches and pains. But I didn't realize how much pain I was in until it disappeared. And then I went, oh, wow. I mean, it's kind of crazy because it's unceremonious in many ways. You expect the wake up, boo, woohoo, there's a party, look at you, you're all healthy now. But it doesn't. It's, it's the work and the effort you put into making choices. And they are conscious choices. You have to, being prepared. I guess in one way, the pandemic has helped that because I'm at home. So I've cleaned out the fridge, I've cleaned out the cupboard, stuff is not around. And everything is full of good, healthy green stuff. It's all clean. It's as organic as it can be. Lots of proteins, and it's there. So it's easier for me to just, okay, this is what we're having because it's on hand. So yeah, I've noticed a ripple effect. Occasionally, when someone has a craving for something sugary, they might go a little mad in the house because we don't have anything. But we've got alternatives. We've got different things. It's not like you're absolutely so rigid. And that was the one on the outset of this. I'm a teenager of the 80s. Everything was about how you looked, being skinny. And if I'm being honest, I had a borderline eating disorder. We all did, I think, in that, and it was all about how you looked and starving yourself. And so I didn't want to get to a point where I was so rigid in anything I chose for my life, is that it had to eliminate and feel so restricted. One of the beautiful things about this eating program for myself is it doesn't feel restrictive. It actually just feels wholesome and healthy. None of it's restrictive. And that's the cool thing, because I don't believe in living a life that's highly restrictive about anything. And also, the ripple effect is we're all healthier. We all feel energized, clearer thinking. It's kind of cool. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. And hearing kind of your journey in terms of the dietary changes and what it's led to in terms of just ease and not feeling restricted in any way is so important, because a lot of people really feel like doing a program or trying to figure out what their diet from a food perspective really looks like. They tend to have this mindset of I'm not going to be able to eat what I want to eat. I'm going to go back to what I was eating that got me sick in the first place. And the diet is one piece of the puzzle, but the effect of it is so strong. It's so widespread. You just don't realize it until you, like you said, the inflammation went away, and then you realize the pain was so bad before it because now it was actually gone.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm call myself a relatively fit and healthy person, haha. But I was always very active. I mean, I was a fitness instructor. I always knew how to be fit, how to look fit, but not to actually be. And back in the day when I learned how to do that, that was more about punishing yourself rather than, no pain, no gain, that whole thing, rather than nurturing and nourishing yourself. And that was the coolest thing that I've learned too, is nurturing and nourishing. And not only that, the things that I did eliminate, no dairy, minimal carbs, I lived on that. That was my go-to. But like any good addiction, it's also the bad stuff. But once I did eliminate, which was a little tricky but not too hard, if I go back and taste any of the things I used to eat, I'm like, oh, how did I even eat that? And that's the cool stuff, is because it's not until you step away that you actually know what inflames you or know how things really, really taste, because you kind of become benign and numb to how things are. You're just doing it as a comfort. It's more a psychological thing than anything. There is so much emotions that are tied up in how we eat and what we've learned through our life and everything else, right?
Absolutely.
And it's kind of undoing those things and realizing that, hey, I don't have to do some of those things. That's not what brings me comfort anymore. I can bring my own comfort through other choices that I make, which sort of is a ripple effect on everything in my life completely. It's been a great journey. It's actually kind of cool. I'm very, very happy and healthy. And that's the kind of cool thing is, again, sitting here looking back to a year ago, and I told you this the other day, is so this time, in Toronto, we're all gardening right now, because what else do we do? But, my husband and I have a substantial garden, and it's lots of hauling of soil and putting stuff. And this time last year, literally, I remember doing exactly what I did this year. Same sort of process, same amount of bags hauled of soil and things like that. Gardening, or, I was in so much pain for days afterwards. We just sort of did the same process a couple of days ago. And I was mindful, but I wasn't expecting, because I didn't want to go into the fear-based part of it. But I woke up the next morning going, whoa, there's not even a flinch or an ache. I mean, I did come upstairs and stretch a little bit, but I did the same thing last year. But that just shows me how much my body could not take even minimal exercise. And I mean, gardening is a wonderful exercise, but to me, it's a minimal exercise in the grand scale of things. And I couldn't even do that. And that was where I was at. I was at the point where I couldn't, when I always say, because I love to walk, if I can't get to a point where I walk the way where I want to and do my ravine walks and things like that, that's a lifestyle thing that really brings me joy. Then it's time for me to say, hey, what's going on here? And that's literally what had happened. I'd walk and do a long walk, say 10 kilometers. I couldn't move for 3 or 4 days after that. Now I do 10 kilometers on average daily. And literally, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. I was very conscious in my journey of peel it back, take it easy, go gently, which is something that's really hard for my mindset, because we've got a few type A's in this family. And it's like, all right, just take it back, peel it back. Okay, we don't need to do that much today. And I was very conscious. And you would explain to me, because I was so inflamed, that actually it's a bit like walking on a broken ankle. It doesn't help the situation, right? As much as you think you're going out to exercise and you're doing things. When you're that inflamed, it actually is basically not healing anything. And you're not recovering at all.
Yeah, you're not getting yourself into that parasympathetic rest, digest, recovery zone, which we know is mediated through the vagus nerve. We're not getting ourselves that opportunity to recover, right? And that recovery is what we truly need, especially when the inflammation is out of control, when our pain is so severe that we can't walk 10 kilometers without being out of commission for a couple of days afterwards. When gardening is so terrible that last year you weren't able to do it. Those are signs that your body is affected by and negatively affected by this inflammation that's constantly present. And we need to do something to chill that out, to calm it down, to put the brakes literally on the inflammatory system and figure out, why is it so inflamed? What's going on? And so I want to shift gears a little bit and ask, we've kind of alluded to the dietary changes, to the fact that your exercise and your ability to move have improved significantly over the past year. But I want to talk a little bit about the journey as well and try to figure out, we did some testing. We helped you kind of figure out some of the root causes behind that inflammation. Do you remember going through those tests, and what were the types of information that you were able to get from that?
That was the coolest part, because that was, to me, was the coolest part, was because it's you can constantly change, you can polish the hood of your car as much as you want and wash it and make it all look bright and shiny. But until you know what's under there, and you're actually dealing with the mechanical issues or the root cause, so to speak, it's only just buffing and making it shiny, and it's still an old clunker, right? And that was the cool stuff. It's like my gut literally was telling me there's something going on. And when we did the testing, that was the coolest part, is to see what was actually happening in my gut. And from that, that's sort of where the light bulb went off for me. It was like when you said to me, you're not processing carbs right now. Well, I am a little cry. No, not my carbs. But here, I mean, I naturally would have been a person who would have, because plant-based is the cool thing everybody's doing right now. I naturally would have gravitated to entirely plant-based. And that's naturally what I would have done, thinking I'm being healthy, and grains and things that in the outside world, or to most people, looks like a healthy diet. That's how I would have gravitated to that, less protein. Whereas naturally, when you said to me, well, you actually process fats really well, and you process protein, and this is what, and I'm like, oh, and pretty much eating carbs is poison in my body. So as soon as somebody tells you what you're putting in your body is the equivalent of poison, it's kind of like, all right, that's a no-brainer. And that was a very easy switch for me, which I didn't think it would be, because I do like my cake and I do like my crackers and I do like, but if I know, and I actually know now because it's there in all of the stuff that you've showed me, and all of the scientific thing is, which I blew my mind for starters, is all of the results. It's there showing me that from an eating perspective and what I'm putting in my body was not helping. That was causing my fire, so to speak. And on top of that, the parasites and the H. pylori. And then I went, whoa, okay, well, we're a bit of it. And the environmental toxins, which was I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know. How would I know? Although it helped me to understand completely why I'm so sensitive to many things, smells, any kind of fumes or anything, is, often set me, and has since I was a child.
Yeah.
I just thought I was sensitive, so to speak, but I literally was sensitive, and I am, right?
Yeah.
And that helped me to understand exactly what's going on. And when you actually know the foundation of what you're dealing with, it's easier to do a renovation then, rather than, you're not just, slapping things on the cracks. You're like, okay, we need to pull that up and we got to fix it. Otherwise, the foundation is going to fall again.
That's
so
exactly right. Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it was a full renovation on a new foundation, and that was fantastic. That's what it's exciting.
I love being able to get answers for people on an individual basis, right? You alluded to this more recent kind of movement towards plant-based and plant-focused eating. And not to say there's anything wrong with it in any way, shape, or form, but it may not be the right answer for each person. And so I'm not about the fad that you see on Facebook or Instagram. I'm not about what Netflix documentary came out and how I have to follow what's on there now because that's what's going on. With testing, we can actually figure out on an individual basis what's going to work for each person. And that's what gives us that clear picture of what we're dealing with and makes it really simple to move forward. So many people have spent so much time and money trying out different diets, figuring out why these issues are happening. And they just say, oh, well, now because, that Netflix documentary came out, now I have to do plant-based. I should be eating Beyond Meat and I should be doing, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe it's not the thing that's going to make the biggest difference for you. And I'm all about that 80-20 rule. Let's do 20% of the work that's going to create 80% of that difference for you. Let's push it so that you can create this massive positive effect just by working on the smallest little tweaks. And that's where it becomes a little bit easier. So that's phenomenal. And I really appreciate you kind of sharing what we were able to find, all of the reasons for those sensitivities, for those challenges that you were experiencing, the inflammation, the liver function, the gut issues, and how they all link together. The testing gives you that clear picture of what the foundation looks like. Then you can do the reno much more simply. It's like we've already done the demolition. Now we can put up the walls correctly and maneuver accordingly to make it function optimally for you.
And it's interesting because you often, people will ask me if I've run into someone and they notice a distinct difference in how I look, is well, what did you do? And, if I say that, oh, well, and it's interesting. And, just talking, and I'll talk and I'll tell people, whoever wants to listen, I'll tell people about my journey, because I think it's great that they feel great. And not only that, if it can make someone else feel great, why not, kind of thing. And so I'm happy to share. I'm happy to tell my story. I think it's a good one. I think we all need good stories right now. But people will often say, well, I'm sure other people get the same kind of diet. Well, my daughter we both had testing, and yet everything came up differently. And that's the cool thing is no, her eating plan was different from mine. And a friend has since done this. His eating plan is different from mine, because we all have different chemistries in our gut. And it's not the one-stop cookie cutter, this is plant-based or anything else. It really does. It's different for everybody according to what's in your own foundation. And we've all had different influences in our lives as to what effect. And our immune systems are different. Everything's different.
Absolutely.
So eating according to that core foundation is kind of cool. We're all different houses, really, aren't we?
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
And I just want to quickly point out, we're not poo-pooing the plant-based diet in any way at all.
Oh, totally not.
Because I think work for each individual.
No. I mean, and again, because it is such a cool thing, and I would gravitate. I love plant-based, but I have to add some serious protein to my plant-based. And because I eat a lot of plants. I eat more plants than I've ever eaten in my life right now. So that's plant-based is amazing. But for me personally, being entirely plant-based would not have worked now that I know my gut chemistry. So that's where that's at.
Totally. So after some technical difficulties, Joelle and I were unable to complete the interview, but you got a gist of what really went on Joelle's health upgrade journey. She was able to experience an understanding of what was really going on. She got some answers as to what was happening internally in her body, in her gut. We got answers as to the style of diet and nutrients that her body required. And she was able to make these really positive changes to her energy, to her ability to show up as a parent, as a wife, as the best version of herself. And because of that, her energy is so much better. And like she said, in her words, the best decision she's ever made. I'm honored by that statement. I'm not here to promote what I'm doing. I'm simply here to help those who are in need. And if you're interested in learning more about your body, trying to figure out what's going on, what's not working well in your body, feel free to reach out and connect with us. We're here to support anybody who really needs it and wants to show up and be a bit more of a high performer by upgrading their health. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk soon.